Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a fantastic guest. This is a friend of mine that's been incredibly successful, and he's a self-made man. He's, started with nothing when we were young and built an empire of real estate and other assets, but also of wonderful people in his life, from children and loved ones along the way. So it's somebody I really admire and like a lot. No further ado, Jason Lipscomb. Jason, welcome to the show. Why don't we kick things off? Just tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Parker. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. Other than the weather not cooperating, looks to be a
right.
pretty good day. A little bit about me. I grew up pretty much in Manchac. I actually moved over to Manchac, which was St. John Parish, because my dad was the superintendent of the school boards, being superintendent for the state. I apologize. And we had to live in a parish, so we ended up living in Manchac. And at that point, even though we were in a different parish, we owned some property across the path. There was a little mix-up of where kids can go to school. Virgil Allen was the principal of Ponchatoula High School. He was also from Manchac, and they allowed us to go to Ponchatoula schools on a variance, but they owned some real estate, so they had the field dock across the street. So I started in Manchac, and like Parker said, I started out working for Ed Hoover at USA Auto Parts. That was, I worked at the fish market, skinned some fish, did all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Went to work for Mr. Ed in the auto parts store. Ended up going to work for Bill Hood as a service writer. Then it's funny enough, I got involved in poker and a little bit of the games, local poker games and stuff, and ended up working for Harrah's New Orleans, worked my way up to the director of the World Series of Poker circuit event. So I became the director for the World Series. Yeah, I used to go out to Vegas. In 2003, 4, and 5, I went out to Vegas and worked, and I was over like the nightlies, the satellites, which we were assistant tournament directors out there, which was a pretty cool feast. And then went through a divorce. Went through a divorce a little bit after that. Traveled a lot with the World Series of Poker. It was a boom. And during my divorce, I remember I was in a meat fight for, custody of the kids, and they had me like, you're always gone. And I remember telling Judge Schutz at the time that I was done dealing, and I got involved in real estate, got my real estate license, and I was still working at the casino at night, selling real estate during the day. And I think where my big break came in was working at Harrah's when Katrina hit. They paid us all. I was a supervisor. They paid us our pay for about a year. And when the casino reopened, I never went back. So I was focused in real estate at that point. Started a real estate team. I was working for KW at the time. Started a team, had a buyer's agent assistant, and we grew it. I mean, we sold, at the peak. I like to pride myself at the peak. I don't do that kind of volume anymore because my hands are in so many other things. But we sold 243 houses. That was 243 in 1 year. So at KW, we were the first millionaire. So Keller Williams prides themselves in MREA, which is a $1 million real estate agent book, and we were the first ones that made it. So we did it 2 years in a row, and that would have been 2020. That would have been 2020 and 2021. So, and shortly after that, I left and opened my own brokerage, which is Downtown Realty, and that's what I do. Pretty cool.
Well, there's so much to unpack there, and I want to take parts of this journey and dig in a little deeper. But let's go all the way back to the beginning. You mentioned one of the most popular guests we've had on the show, our high school principal, Virgil Allen.
Correct.
We had his nephew, Dr. Greg Allen, on the show a few weeks ago, a month ago or so. And, between talking to them, we learned about kind of the prominence of Manchac in their life. And we've had a few guests, grow up in Manchac or be really tied to it. Most of the people in our area, like myself, think of Manchac as the place where you have your camp, you go hunting, you go fishing, you're blessed to have a boat slip, a camp, whatever. It's recreational heaven. But as we all know, there are a few strips of homes down there. And so you're one of these guys that actually live there. So if you don't mind, tell me, what was that like? Because, Ponchatoula, where your business and my law firm and our home sit, we're 8 to 10 miles up the road from Manchac. But what was living there actually like before you kind of made your way up here through school? And
You know, what's funny is and I'll kind of go back and it's funny now. All I wanted as a kid was to get out of man check, right? And now that I can't, all I want to do is get back to man check. It's funny how it all reverses, you know, because I know when I'm out of man check, I'm not working. I'm not working. I'm actually enjoying the water and et cetera. But to kind of take it a little bit, so we would have moved there. I would have been in 7th grade, just starting 7th grade at Ponchatoula Junior High, and we had a bus. Donnie Thalsman used to have the bus on the other side of the bridge. So we lived on. So if you could picture where I lived, was behind Galva. It was on Galva Canal behind Gators Den.
So I know that area well. We still have a boat slip there to this day. So I'm down there all the time. You know,
so you know how the road goes. You know how the road goes up next to the railroad tracks. The road goes up.
Absolutely, yeah.
You got to go all the way to the end, and at the end, you had a house on Pylons, a big house, Randy Parker, and they had a house next door to that. So you'll probably know who the guy. It was John Fiducia. You remember John Fiducia, the attorney?
Absolutely, best mustache in all of law. Yeah,
correct.
Dear friend of my parents.
So that was their camp. So that was the house that I grew up in. So at 7th grade, we lived there.
So John and Miss Cooch, right? That would have been who? Yeah.
And he had a partner, the guy that was his brother-in-law that owned the Honda shop in Hammond. So it was two.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So it was pretty neat to grow up there, and you know, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, we'd go crabbing, we'd go shrimping, whatever it was. I'd fish bass tournaments, you name it. I had this little boat. I must have been, what was that, 13, 14 years old. It was one of those life rafts. You know, we were poor. It was one of those life rafts. They drop out of the helicopter, them orange boats with the nets, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I had that, and I put a piece of plywood on the top of it, and I had a trawling motor. And I would go fish all in the rock shells and the holes and stuff. So that was pretty much my life. I did a lot of fishing. I would work on the crab boats. I'd work on the shrimp boats. I'd do, you know, anything to make money. But the cool thing is that on weekends, like during the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you were kind of on your own. But on the weekends, everybody came down to your house and or you went down to their house on the pass and enjoyed life. And I used to make money because I used to cut grass for those guys that had camps and stuff because they didn't want to cut the grass. So I'd put the boat, get the lawnmower, put it in the flatboat, and go down and cut grass. Or, you know, I remember they called me one time. They needed me to move like 100 sheets of plywood, and I was like, "Hey, I'll do that." I didn't realize how heavy plywood was, and I ended up figuring a little method out on how I actually moved it within the boat, because you had to carry it all the way down the dock, and we'd kind of pretty much just throw it on the bottom of the boat. So, and then I worked at Mendor's for, I think, my claim to fame. I think I worked there for one day. I wouldn't.
Whoa! How that ends so quickly? That's wild.
I skinned some fish in the back because I was pretty good. I'm actually still pretty good at skinning catfish because I worked at Reno's for, I don't know, 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was skinning fish in the back, and they were like, "We're gonna need you to wash dishes." And I was like, "Well, I thought I just skinned fish." And they were like, "No, you're gonna do it all." And I went in there. I wasn't very good at washing dishes. wasn't very fast. So they relieved me of my duties that day, and
if it makes you feel any better, you're not the only guy to have a rough time there. It was a great place to work, as you know. They paid more than most places. My best friend Will Richardson was probably there when you were working there. He worked there all through high school. But in the 80s, my older brother Jean Paul worked there, and I think they were doing something in the attic or whatever, and they actually fell through from the attic. You know, they could see legs dangling in the main dining hall there, and that didn't go over well with the patrons. But,
I knew Joey. when he but I was really good friends with Mr. Joey's dad. So that was my connection, because they had community grocery on the east side of Hammond for years. And my grandfather my grandpa Torsky used to service all the units for like Catfish Charlie's and this. So they had community grocery. So I knew Mr. Joe, and that was kind of my end with Mr. Joe, but it didn't go. My end didn't save me with Joey. So
that's how it goes.
Then I went back to Reno's, and I pretty much ran that place, Reno's. I ran the fish market, crab skinning, and whatever came. I was there for a long time, and they treated me well, for being.
The Reno's a great family. Shout out to them. You talk about staples of the Man Shack community. Just wonderful people, and they have provided us so much from delicious catfish to much more. Jason, if you don't mind, give me a moment here. I want to slow down and recognize some of our folks that are leaving comments. To our listeners and our viewers, we're obviously here with Jason Lipscomb, and we've got some comments coming in that I want to share. The first is from Abby Ross. Hey, Abby, thank you for coming on the show. She says, my cousin, Jason Lipscomb. Hey, so shout out from because that's so cool that she's able to reach them live. And then we've got a second comment from Boning Supermarket, another mainstay.
John Boning.
And that says, hey, my friends. I don't know if that's our former guest, John Boning, or one of the other Boning family members.
He's my next lives across the street from me now.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that must be who that is. Keep it in the neighborhood. And then finally, Wayne Ratliff. Hey, Wayne, what a beautiful photo of the two of you there. Thank you for watching, man. He says hello. So to our other viewers that might be watching us live here on Facebook in real time, as you can see, we have the ability to publish your comment and share it with Jason. So if you're just a family member or a friend that wants to say, hey, jump in like Wayne and Abby and whoever. But if you also have a question for him, feel free to put it here, and I'll do my best as your host to get it through to him. Some of you may have questions about how to succeed in business, real estate, whatever. Just fire away, and we'll do our best to include you in the show. So back to growing up, we're talking Man Shack here, Jason, and what a wonderful way of life that was. And I love to hear kind of your candor about, as a kid, you just want to get out. As an adult, you just want to go back. Part of that might have something to do with your viewpoint. You're talking about, the little hand-me-down boat with a piece of plywood and a trolling motor back then. And now you can afford the biggest, finest boats, the Tickfall 200 if you want. And maybe that's got nothing to do with it. But let's talk about the kind of transition across the past there from Man Shack, Ponchatoula. You mentioned Virgil Allen, our principal, the superintendent of schools, makes that happen for you. I guess what I want to get to is, what was your PHS experience like? How did you like Ponchatoula High School, and who was important to you in that chapter of your life?
It was funny. I was having this conversation with my youngest son, Connor. He plays football. I played football my freshman and sophomore year, and I think at that point, the kids start growing, and you realize that you ain't growing, and the hits get hard. Like, well, this ain't too smart for me, because I don't think I hit my growth spurt till probably after high school. I started putting on some weight, and I learned what a gym was. We didn't have gyms in Man Shack. That's just not something we did. The most exercise you had was kind of walking across the bridge. But I believe Virgil would have been, when I got to the high school, Virgil, maybe my freshman year he was there, and I think.
Let me help you unpack this, because as I recall, you were class of 97 with my brother Bree, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I was class of 95. That was Virgil's last year as principal. In 96, he would be his first year as superintendent.
Okay, so my sister graduated with you, Stacy.
Correct.
Stacy
Yes. Graduated with his last class.
Party. Yeah, and that whole. But high school was great. I love Ponchatoula. I tell people all the time, I've left, but this is home, and we've done pretty well for ourselves in life. And I got a buddy lives in Fort Lauderdale.
That's an understatement, but I appreciate your humility.
I had a buddy live in Fort Lauderdale, and we considered moving there. And I was like, I like dirty water. We had a condo on the beach, and I still like that Man Shack water runs through my. It's something about that rotten fish smell, or that smell when the smoke is real low and it sours, and it just makes you feel alive. So I have a daughter and a stepdaughter in Austin, and I love Austin, and I probably will be. We're looking at some stuff over there now. We're probably going to buy a condo over there, because we like to think that we have 5 kids total. Me and my wife, which Billy would be the oldest. She's at San Mark. Just graduated at Texas State. She's going to be a teacher. Then we have Bryce would be next, but Bryce.
Shout out to Bryce. I'm very proud that Bryce is going to be working at my law firm this summer. And I give a quick props to him. He's near the top of his class at LSU Law, just kicking butt. And I know how hard it is to get through that first year and prosper. So whatever you did with him, you did right, man. Congrats on that.
Yeah, I'm blessed. He's definitely got the brains. He's in his temperament, and I'll let him tell you that he received two offers for L2 and 3, and he accepted one. So I'll let him.
Oh, That's
Yeah,
exciting, man. Very cool.
he sent me a picture of the acceptance on Monday, but I'll let him talk to you who it was with.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We've been talking about the various places he was interviewing, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but I know they're the top firms in the state. So he Ponchatoula cannot afford him very long. He's leaving me to go to some of the biggest and best firms in the state, from our little 5-lawyer firm on Hickory Street to a firm with hundreds of lawyers. But the sky's the limit for that guy. And I'll say this, Jason, he's obviously bright, but he's also down to earth. And what I like about him, every when I interviewed him, I'm asking him questions, and we've interviewed. I have 12 interns this summer, so we've had a lot of interviews over the years with young people, and he's one of the very best guys for asking you interesting questions at the interview. Almost nobody comes in with a good question about what makes the firm tick, what makes the people there work, and he's got that intuition. So I think he's going to go far.
From a young age, it's funny how you look back, and I'm really good friends with Jeff Lipscomb.
Great guy.
Jeff has been a big part of my life as far as early on and now, and in real estate. I when he first opened his title company, when he left Harvey. And I'm also friends with Matt Emmons. Obviously these attorneys, Eric Liddell, I think his wife works for you. Eric's a friend of mine as well. Including you, when I think y'all answer questions like, I guess I'm judging a little bit, but you can tell when you're talking to an attorney versus you're talking to a real estate guy because of the questions and comments. And he's been that way ever since he was a little kid. And he always wanted to go to med school. I don't know if you knew that. So
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that brother is a doctor, Hank. I know you know little Hank Grisco.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He's in Gainesville, and he's crushing it. Congrats. Big shout out to him. But him and Bryce are really close, and Hank taught Bryce out of med school. And then we had a brief conversation.
It seems like a good choice because he seems just perfectly suited for success in law. And I don't know. I'm sure he could have probably been a great neurosurgeon too. But
he's excited. I'm excited he's going to be working for you because he's going to come home and live with you for a little bit this summer, and I get to.
Thank you for mentioning Jeff Lipscomb and Matt Emmons and Eric Liddell, all great guys. And Jeff was one of our first guests on the show. And I want to interrupt your story very briefly, just because a name you'll recognize closely, but Jeff's very best friend in the world, Kevin Rayford, is chiming in. And what Kevin's got to say about you, his old classmate, is that you're a great guy, a wonderful businessman, and he values your friendship. So he's really glad to have you in our parish. You stayed in our parish and didn't go to Fort Lauderdale, and are talking just condos and part-time in Austin, not full-time. But he says great job. And Kevin, to you, I want to thank you for a great job. I had to kind of put Kevin on the spot and ask for a lot of his valuable time this morning on short notice. And he was kind enough to both meet me at my office and then a second time at his office later in the day. So I know the parish assessor's time is very valuable. And it's cool to see our old schoolmate kicking butt, Jason, and doing such a great job in a leadership role. And so to Kevin and his beautiful wife, Karen, we say thank you for tuning in.
Kevin's one of those guys that's such a servant leader. Like, he's just a good guy to be around. He makes you better. And in 2026, when I was setting some goals, Kevin was on my list. It's like friendships like that I value. Kevin, Artie Thompson, Jeff. And what I will say is I'm not the person that hides. Unfortunately, in real estate, I have to deal with some certain things. Like, I get some shots, and we'll get later into that as far as when I buy an old building.
Is this like a haters gonna hate kind of situation? Because I can relate a little bit in the law.
Right, and they're gonna hate on me, and that's okay. But those guys like Kevin, the Jeffs, the Arties, the David Powell's one of my closest friends, my business partner Oscar. Those guys, they understand it because they get a little bit of that hate too. Unfortunately, that's just part of it. But I learned something from them that people don't punch down, Parker. They don't punch down. They say what they want about Ed Hoover. He's a personal friend of mine. You don't hear him talking shit about anybody. You know why?
No, of course.
What
you do see about Ed Hoover, and I think the same applies to you, and I know it applies to Kevin and Jeff and all the Artie Thompson, all the guys you mentioned. Ed Hoover's a guy who, when you talk about, not only does he not punch down, instead he reaches down to help the next generation. So a year or two ago, we had Terry Adams on this podcast. You may know Terry, but he's been one of the best BMX riders in the world. And he told this great story, I don't know how long ago, probably 20 years ago. As a kid, he's practicing in, maybe it was the Hobby Lobby parking lot.
Hobby Lobby parking lot.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the many commercial parking lots that Ed Hoover owns, and the managers are running them off and whatnot. And long story long, at this point, Ed Hoover steps in and is like, you can absolutely practice your craft in my parking lot. Hands him a piece of paper, says, here's a letter, show it to any manager I got. Come anytime you want. But beyond that, he took Terry under his wing and taught him real estate investing. And now Terry, who's a guy who struggles with, I think, dyslexia and other issues, has, not only had a successful career as a world champion in his chosen craft of BMX flatland racing, but he's also got a robust, portfolio because of Mr. Ed. And, I mean, you worked for Ed. Did he play a role in your jump into real estate? How'd all that work?
So when I worked for Ed at USA Auto, which I will admit is one of my favorite jobs I ever had. Ed wasn't there long. He sold out probably 2 months into my shift. So no. So with that regard is Ed and I never.
You got bad time in there. That's tough luck.
So, but there was another guy that came in. His name was D. Holman. He kind of took me under the wing, and I loved auto parts. I was really good at it, but unfortunately, being really good at something that doesn't make any money doesn't make you a nice lifestyle.
Right.
But what I did was I knew Frankie Kala. He went with Ed. I watched their story. Ed, I think Ed told me he didn't buy his first piece of real estate and start investing. So he's like, 53 or maybe 63. I'm not sure. I don't remember what that number was.
That's amazing to think about that kind of late start and the empire that he's built and that he's probably continue to manage.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I bet Ed and his whole entourage owns 30-40% of the commercial real estate in Tangipahoa Parish. And they probably own 80% of the warehouses, which is huge numbers. And it's not those guys. I don't think it's those guys feeling any. I'll put it to you this way: I could call Ed, maybe not right now because he's still got a flip phone. I can call him at work tomorrow, and he will take my call and tell me he'll call me back, or he'll say, "Hey, let's meet at my office at X amount of time." He'll always make time, and he coaches you. He coaches you with grace. So the way I knew Ed. So let's step back a little bit further. So Ed was big on the poker. Remember when they started running in poker tournaments?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Trey in. Well, he knew I was a director on the tour, and he needed my assistance to help a little bit. So Ed used to bring me in a little bit here and a little bit there and help. And I used to show those guys. I didn't run every tournament for everyone, but I would at least start them, kind of like the Ponchatoula Chamber or the Hammond Chamber. I started all the poker tournaments around here with those guys, Special Olympics, they did the work. I just was the brains to tell them how it worked, right? And once they figured it out, they didn't mean because it's not rocket science. And my friendship kind of catapulted from there. And then, a lot of people's vision in real estate is the quick game. And I don't want to get off subject about PHS, but I'm sure that if we got any viewers, they probably want to hear this because this is a good story and you probably want to hear it too.
No, bring it on. We can circle back to PHS now. I just want to put one thing in first before you go.
Okay.
This is keeping it class of 97. The great Marshall Graves on here has come on the comment. And Marshall says the popcorn at USA Auto was good. And I agree. I know, Marshall, we live like 3 blocks away, and I went there for the popcorn too. Today on the show, we got the guy who was making the popcorn, probably. Jason.
No, I wasn't qualified to make it. I had to clean them.
Oh, you wouldn't let
I was cleaning.
That's funny. So let's circle back, Jason. You were trying to teach us a lesson about real estate, and I rudely interrupted. Please continue. Tell us about the real estate lesson.
Well, sometimes I'm asked to speak on podcasts or I'm asked to speak. I went to some events, and what I was really good at is getting in front of people as far as real estate. What I learned really on was what I learned from the casino is how to read people. And the biggest thing is who the decision makers are when you're trying to get somebody to list a house or you work in sellers. And so what I learned early on was, you remember Dawn Forche? Remember Dawn?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So
she used to live on 6th Street, right, or near the park, about a block from my parents. Yeah,
she did. Correct. I think the Emersons just bought that place. Nice house. So I had a real estate team. I read the little MRE book, and I had a buyer's agent, and I had an admin, and I was doing things. I was making some waves in the world. I remember sitting in a room, and Lewis Williams, who's a very successful real estate agent in Mandeville. I remember him sitting on the podium saying he sold like $9 million that year, and I was like, "Holy crap, $9 million! That's amazing!" And me and Megan were there, and I had to pay for these tickets. So Megan Stevens was my buyer's agent, and Kayla would have been my admin at the time, and we're sitting there, and so we had to set a goal. Right, so we set a goal of $5 million. Blew our mind. $5 million. God, well, can we do $5 million? Well, we finished a little short, and I think we finished like 4.2, 4.3 that year. Next year, we set a goal of like 12 million. We blew that out of the water and went up way high to like 20 million. And then I hired a coach because I could afford a coach. I couldn't afford one at that time, but I finally hired one. And I remember sitting there with Dawn, and there was a couple conversations that we had that I still treasure. Is she said something to me about. We started developing a team. She's like, well, what are you going to do for the team? I was like, well, I'm really good at being a buyer's agent. I could get people to buy. She's like, shook her head, no. I was like, what do you mean, no? She's like, you're not a buyer's agent. I was like, huh? So what people don't understand in real estate, when you got these mega teams that are producing the volume, the listings bring all the money. The buyers are going to come and chase the listings. That's just how real estate works. So, but you actually have a transaction coordinator. So once the house goes under contract, that's when you negotiate the transaction. She's like, you're not going to do that either. She's like, you're going to be a listing agent. And I became a listing agent. I'll tell you, it was a setback. It was a learning curve. I didn't like working with sellers. But now I can't even imagine working with anybody else. Like, I work with sellers. I have friends today that like, hey, I'm going to go see that house. And I'm like, let me get you one of my buyer's agents. And they're like, what do you mean you're not going to show it to me? I mean, at the end of the day, I will. But it's not what I'm good at. I stay in my lane.
Well, and help me break this down and make sure I've got this right. Because what I'm hearing is, thankfully your business has been one of these up and to the right, success stories where you snowball builds and, you keep getting bigger and better year after year. But in the early days, you hear 9 million and that sounds, like it's in the clouds. You target 5 million, almost get there, don't. Then immediately you blow up to past 12 million.
12 million, yeah, we go to 12. Then we go to 20. Then we go to 20.
But let me stop here. But most people at that point will be, hoorah, how do I spend the money? What's the biggest what? Instead, what you decide to do is invest in yourself and get a coach.
Correct.
And I think that's something critical people could have missed because it's helped me so much in my law practice too. Many years after being voted top lawyer in the parish or just whatever accolades I've been fortunate enough to be blessed with, I probably later than I should have got a coach and it helped me just, succeed even more. But how did you humble yourself to realize, hey, I can benefit from this? And because Dawn, now she's written the book, Trailer Park CEO. And all this. At the time, many of us just knew it was a nice lady who lived on 6th Street. How did you humble yourself to say, hey, I need a coach. I want to get better. I'm going to hire this lady or anybody else to get there. And am I correct in picking up that it was an important part of that journey to help you blow up even further?
Well, what happened was it came in that I didn't have any time for me or the kids, and I was like, all I'm doing is working. I got to figure this out. I actually met with another Boning. Remember the other Boning, that William Boning? He was in real estate.
Oh yeah, he was a bank president for a while too. That's Michael's brother, I believe. Mike's brother.
Yeah, I think he passed away. I think he moved to Arkansas and passed away like a couple years ago.
I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know that. He was a really nice guy.
So I met with him. He was actually running the Lewis's team. He was like the operations of, and I listened to him and I was like, man, there's just so much I don't know. I need to figure this out. So that's when I hired Dawn. And keep in mind, after Dawn, I think that you reach a certain level that you can grow, and that coach is here, and you want to go here. So I've had 5 different coaches after Dawn. And I've learned something. Actually, the last coach I had, I just saw she just got promoted to like president of KW. She's over like investing now. So
that's
pretty cool. She came to little Podunk Ponchatoula at Ruin Brew and had dinner with my team a few years ago. And to see where she's at. And I texted her congratulations. And believe it or not, I was like, look at this. Like, that was pretty cool. So it was
that's so cool. And it's just so important, folks, to have mentors. And for me, my journey is like yours, included coaching. It's included moving on from the first set of coaching when you hit a certain level to another. But I don't think you ever really reach a level where you're too big for that. We look at things like friendships between Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, and they're talking about how to make money and iron sharpening iron, and they're different points. Each the richest man in the world. there's never a lack of that necessity or opportunity. I want to share a few more comments here. Our friend Raymond Starkey, hey Raymond, he says that you're probably the best realtor in the parish. That's high praise.
I appreciate
that. Great ones out there. Donald Burton, Donald, so good to hear from one of our best law enforcement officers. He says, a shout out to my friend Jason. If the best definition of display of entrepreneurship in its entirety. So that's nice. Our friend Layla Bourgeois says, hey Layla. And I just want to thank everybody here. I think we got Donald's post twice, but I want to thank you. Oh, and there's one more I missed a while back. Abby Ross says, you can take the man out of Man Shack, but you can't take the Man Shack out the man.
Right.
Jason, I promise I'll be respectful of your time, and we're nearing the end of what I've got from you. I know you have another appointment coming up. Let me ask you a few questions, as we wind down. And one is, what should people know about you, real estate, business, all the things that you're kind of known for being successful in? There's always like what people see, and it's the tip of the iceberg, and then there's the rest that's underwater. But what should we know about you and your career and what you've learned along the way?
What I learned the most was that real estate is a long-term play. Sure, you can make fast money flipping houses and watching HGTV, but you can lose fast money too. But when you can figure out how to let somebody pay your mortgage down in your sleep, it changes your life. And when you can start rolling that over, it'll change your family life. And when you can teach them and educate them on what you're doing and other people, to me, I love nothing more to see somebody out there. I don't want to say his name, but I remember this young kid came to me about 12 years ago, started in a trailer. He lived in $1 million home now. I lived in a trailer. I grew up in a trailer park in front of Sanderson Farm before I moved to Man Shack. And it's not humbling. Let's say just because you grow up somewhere doesn't mean you have to stay there. But when you learn to build wealth, that changes everything. And what I'm saying by that is that, and I don't want to be too prideful, but if I never sold another house, my lifestyle did not change. It doesn't. Yeah. But I want to sell a lot more houses, right? And I still want to play. I still want to play this game. Like we just closed. Yeah. I mean, we just closed on a building in downtown Ponchatoula on 6th Street today. Like I'm going deeper in the restaurant.
And that's music to my ears because I've seen what you've done with those buildings. I rented from Andrew Edwards month-to-month lease handshake deal for 12 years at the old Gateway building, which you bought and invested so much into, and it looks great. It's in fantastic shape. So I know whatever you just bought, you're going to make better as you've done with everything from, the corner property with the district and all that. As we close, to the people that might want to be like you one day, and I know it's a very long conversation. We only have a short period, so you can't teach us everything to do to get from where they are to where you are, but how to get started. What's most important to remember when someone gets started if they want to go down the real estate path?
You never ever make money when you sell real estate. You make money when you buy it. You have to understand where you at when you start if you ever want to finish. What I would recommend to everybody, I had this conversation with one of my business partners today. You think you want to sell something, but in reality is if you could pick up $600 to $700 a month for the rest of your life and pay that mortgage down, what does it look like in 10, 15, 20 years when you own some real estate? Look, one thing I will tell you, I've learned, taxes. You're going to pay a lot of taxes when you make a lot of money. So if you got some real estate and you got a good CPA, you learn how to save it. It's never about what you make. It's about what you keep. And that's what me and my wife do. I can make money. I'm really good at it. I can spend money. I'm really good at it. I like a lot of toys, but she can keep the money. She can keep the money and keep me aligned. And we have a CPA in our office. And if you don't have a CPA that you can pick up and dial, I mean, I told somebody the other day, they were like, well, who are you going to do this and about this and this and this? And it was talking about chief. They were talking about sheriff. They were talking about the DA. I was like, I'm at a point in my life where, what matters most to me is who's the mayor and who's the assessor. I don't get in trouble anymore. Right?
Well, hey, I met with both of them this morning, man. And I'm here to tell you, we got a great mayor in Wesley Daniels. A fantastic assessor in Kevin Rayford. And so you're in good shape. If that's the place you need help, you're rolling, man.
No, I agree with you. I think all those guys. I think Wesley's doing a fantastic job.
Absolutely.
10 to 15 years will be great, and hopefully I'll give it in and let somebody else take a run at it. But invest in yourself. This is what I tell everybody: invest in yourself, and the best investment you can make is in real estate, because you can put.
That's great advice. I thank you for that. So before we go, is there anything else on your mind, on your heart, anything you want to share with our viewers and our listeners?
Nothing really. I mean, I love Ponchatoula, and I caught a lot of flack early on for certain people. But what I could tell you is my plan is always to leave it better than I found it. And when I say that is, you don't see what's behind the scenes. It's kind of like the iceberg and under the wave. But there's a lot of decisions that go into the process of what we do. We don't just show up one day and say, let's take the balcony off the building because it'll look better. It's reasons. It's reasons behind things rotten, and we're trying to preserve history. And look, I'm a sucker for an old building. I mean, I just bought 3 more in Magnolia, Mississippi. I don't even know why. That's the only place in the world I've yet to make money in. But I like the town. So invest in yourself, and I'm only a phone call away. I mean, at the end of the day, real estate. I tell everybody, real estate's easy if you understand it, and the only questions that are stupid is the ones you don't ask.
Well, thank you for sharing your valuable time and your valuable information and insights. And I want to thank you for your generosity. You've been great, to my family, to my friends, and to my city. And so, I think one thing I'll say about, what you just said was, the proof is in showing people, not telling people. You can tell people all day what you want to do, but you have shown the city by picking up properties and making them better today than they were the day you bought them. And I have no doubt they'll be better in 10 years than they are today. So keep buying and keep taking care of them. And I know that if they're in your hands, they're in good hands. And what do they say? The rising tide lifts all boats. When you fix up a big glamour piece of property at the corner of Main Street, it helps my little office on Hickory Street, several blocks away. So keep it up, brother. So thank you. Have fun. And to our viewers, I say thank you for sticking with us till the end. We'll be back next week. Y'all take care.
All right. Thank you.